Number 8. F-35 failed landing. In early 2022, leaked footage of a failed F-35 landing on the USS Carl Vinson began circulating online. As shown in a clip taken from the in-deck pilot's landing aid television, the aircraft's descent appeared to be unfolding normally as it approached the Nimitz-class supercarrier. It's unclear what difficulty the pilot encountered, but the fighter jet lost its stability and began to wobble seconds before touching down on the runway. Sounds indicated a growing sense of panic were heard in the audio which accompanied the cell phone footage, as the pilot was urged to pull up. The aircraft, estimated at well over $100 million, then burst into flames upon making contact with the flight deck. The pilot ejected from it and was reported as unharmed. The F-35 then slid across the surface of the aircraft carrier before plunging overboard and crashing into the South China Sea. CNN published a photo of it floating in the water, which was confirmed by a US Navy spokesperson as real. A salvage operation was set into motion while an investigation was also launched to determine how footage of the failed landing had been leaked. Number 7. DHL cargo plane. A Boeing 757-200 cargo plane operated by DHL broke apart in the spring of 2022 at the Juan Santa Maria International Airport in Costa Rica. About an hour after taking off from the airport, with a course for Guatemala, the pilot indicated an emergency landing. According to Luis Miranda Muniz, Deputy Director of Costa Rica's Civil Aviation Authority, the aircraft had experienced a failure in the hydraulic system. 757 can't dump its fuel. Therefore, the crew circled the Pacific coastline several times, burning off its reserves, to ensure that it would be lighter when landing. Upon touching down on the runway, the aircraft skidded and veered sharply to the right before spinning around and ending up in a grassy field. As shown in photos and videos that circulated on social media, both its gear struts then collapsed. As the plane crashed down, one of its wings sustained severe damage, while its tail end section completely broke apart from the main body. Emergency vehicles rushed to the scene of the wreck, and firefighters began spraying water on the Boeing, which was reported to have been carrying hazardous materials at the time. Its crew was unharmed and traffic on the airport resumed about 5 hours after the crash. Number 6. JetBlue Flight 1852. In April of 2022, cell phone videos taken aboard JetBlue Flight 1852 from Cancun, Mexico, on a course to JFK Airport in New York City showed passengers pleading with cabin crew to be let off the aircraft after it had been shaken up by bad weather. The inclement meteorological conditions had prevented landing at its destination airport in spite of repeated attempts. The flight was thus diverted to the nearby Newark Liberty International Airport, where it was able to land. However, a customs processing issue prevented passengers from deboarding in spite of their repeated requests. "I'm not going back in the air," a passenger told cabin crew, while arguing that he was willing to get arrested if it meant remaining on the ground. Another passenger got up from his seat and said they were scared to fly, arguing that their planned 3-hour flight had turned into a 6-hour one. The man pointed out that other passengers were fainting or throwing up and demanded a little respect for human beings. He added that everyone wanted to get off the plane, and when a crew member contradicted him, other passengers collectively supported the man's claims. Tensions eventually died down as the aircraft was grounded at Newark for an estimated 60 minutes. It then departed again and safely landed at JFK, with passengers reportedly offered $50 in flight credits for the inconvenience. Number 5. UN plane in Mali. A UN plane encountered difficulty upon landing at an airport in the city of Gao in northern Mali on August 3rd of 2020. The Antonov AN-74 TK-100 was affiliated with the Multi-Dimensional Integrated Stabilization Mission in Mali and carrying 11 people, 4 of whom were UN personnel. About an hour and 10 minutes after it had taken off from Bamako, the plane's right engine generator failed. The captain initiated the descent and tried to start the auxiliary power unit, or APU, at which point the left engine generator stopped working as well. Subsequent attempts to restart the APU failed, and the aircraft experienced full power loss in the moments that followed. The flaps thus remained retracted, and the landing procedure at Gao was performed visually. The plane touched down at nearly 550 yards from the runway's threshold and because it couldn't be stopped, overran the landing strip by several hundred yards. It came to a stop in muddy, waterlogged ground, with its landing gear collapsed and its nose badly damaged. All of those on board survived, but 2 crew members were reported to have sustained injuries. Number 4. Bajura Airport Incident. Clips from Bajura Airport in Kolti, Nepal, showed passengers pushing the plane in which they just traveled off the runway in December of 21. The de Havilland Canada DHC-6300 Twin Otter, operated by Tara Air, blew a tire upon landing. The pilot had managed to bring the plane to a halt without incident, allowing its passengers to safely deboard. However, the airport lacked the proper infrastructure to move the aircraft, which basically meant that it was stranded on the landing strip, preventing other planes circling overhead from landing. Passengers and personnel banded together and started pushing the aircraft, ultimately clearing it off the runway. The clip quickly rose to over 800,000 views on TikTok, and many users praised the passengers' resourcefulness and teamwork. A second plane then arrived at the airport, carrying engineers and spare tires. The marooned aircraft was outfitted with a new wheel, and both planes later took off for Nepal-Ganj. Number 3. Incident at Trabzon Airport. A passenger jet operated by Pegasus Airlines carrying 168 people slid off an icy runway at Trabzon Airport. In January of 2018, the Boeing 737-800 had departed from the Turkish capital of Ankara and nearly an hour and a half later touched down at Trabzon. The aircraft then veered off the runway and went down an embankment before coming to a halt with its nose precariously dangling from a cliff close to the edge of the Black Sea. The aircraft lost its right engine, which tumbled into the sea, and it's believed that it was prevented from sliding farther into the water by its landing gear getting stuck in the wet mud. Footage from inside the Boeing showed that panic-fueled screams had erupted in the cabin. Traveler Fatma Gordu later gave a media outlet her first-hand account of the incident, saying, "We tilted to the side. The front was down while the plane's rear was up. The cabin crew ordered an immediate evacuation, and none of the people on board suffered any serious injuries." An investigation was launched, while in the immediate aftermath, one of the pilots claimed that the deviation had been caused by a power surge in one of the engines. Today's topic was requested by Kristen D. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Air Niugini Flight 73. On September the 28th of 2018, Air Niugini Flight 73 left from Pohnpei Airport, heading to Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, with a stop at Chuuk International Airport on the island of Weno. An investigation would later determine that the pilots had lost situational awareness and control of the aircraft upon disengaging the autopilot and preparing to land. The crew descended too fast and heard but disregarded 13 alerts from their enhanced ground proximity warning system. The Boeing 737-8BK came to a stop in the waters of Chuuk Lagoon, nearly 150 yards short of the airport. Initial reports suggested that all 35 passengers and 12 crew members had been successfully rescued by the cumulative efforts of local boats and United States Navy personnel. 6 of the passengers had sustained serious injuries, which included broken bones. Shortly after the evacuation had been completed, an unnamed male Indonesian passenger who had been seated in 23A was reported missing. 3 days of searches yielded no results, and a verification of the aircraft, which had become partially submerged in 100 feet of water, was ordered. Divers eventually found the passenger's lifeless body on October the 1st, and a medical analysis of his remains was conducted. A lack of trauma around his waist and hips indicated that he hadn't been wearing his seatbelt at the time of the crash landing, which allowed his body to become a projectile, sustaining traumatic head and facial injuries. He succumbed to them within 3 minutes of impact, in spite of Air Niugini's previous statements that he'd been seen by other passengers evacuating the aircraft. Number 1. Aeroflot Flight 1492. On May the 5th of 2019, Aeroflot Flight 1492 took off from Moscow's Sheremetyevo International Airport as storm clouds towered over the runway. At some point during its climb at around 8,900 feet, the Sukhoi Superjet 100 was struck by lightning. radio and autopilot became inoperative, which led to the captain, 42-year-old Denis Yevdokimov, assuming manual control of the aircraft. The crew managed to restore communication with air traffic control, and they were guided back to Sheremetyevo. The captain manually approached the runway, and at the time the aircraft was roughly 1.6 tons over its maximum landing weight. The plane touched down hard, beyond the runway threshold speed, and bounced off the surface 2 times, seconds apart. On the second bounce, it rose to nearly 18 feet before making contact for a third and final time at roughly 160 miles per hour. The landing gear was sheared off, penetrating the wing and causing fuel to leak out of the wing tanks. Sparks generated by friction with the surface ignited a fire that engulfed the wings, rear fuselage, and tail of the Sukhoi. Passengers at the back of the plane were trapped in the ensuing inferno. 40 passengers and 1 flight attendant of the plane's 78 occupants were killed. Investigators filed charges against Yevdokimov in October of 2019, claiming that his actions had violated the existing regulations and led to the destruction and outbreak of fire. His charges included him choosing to fly in stormy weather, ignoring wind shear warnings upon approaching the runway, as well as being inadequately trained to manually fly the plane. Thanks for watching. Would you rather crash land in the middle of the Sahara Desert or be on a plane that's caught in a hurricane? Let us know in the comments section below.